Easy guys, it's Monk here. Fairly quick one today. I just wanted to do a little feature on a plugin that I really enjoy. It's my favourite reverb to use. I used it all through this ambient project that I made, where like I did like sort of like a mini ambient album called Meditation Music, and it's basically the whole thing is running different sound, like an exploration of sound and running different sounds through reverb, and the whole album is done through Valhalla Vintage Verb, which is my favourite reverb plugin. So we're gonna just do a little bit on that plugin, basically show you why I love it, show you some of the different reverbs that it can achieve, and the parameters on it as well, and hopefully convince you that it is the best reverb. So this isn't sponsored or anything, by the way. I'm just doing this video because I love this plugin, and I hope that I can sort of like share that with other people. I like sharing the information that I find over time, and the plugins. There's a lot of plugins out there, and there's a lot of money you could spend looking for the best plugins. So it's always useful when someone can actually recommend you one that is definitely going to be good. I'm going to use this sample instead. I just realised the sample that I had in there was quite a bad example because it was already windy, like a kind of windy sound anyway. So if I get something that's more like a pluck like this, we can hear the effects of the reverb a bit better. So here's the dry sound. Okay, and then with Vintage Verb on. And there's all these different types. I found that Smooth Plate is my favourite in here. So in here there's basically mode, and there's all these different types of reverb that you can achieve. Ambient, Sanctuary, Dirty Hall, Dirty Plate. I won't read all of them out, but you can go through and you can see that there's like a good amount of different reverbs on there. Then your other option next to it is colour, and you get 1970s, 1980s, and now. It's really cool when you click on these different types, you get a different colour scheme. So this is obviously the 70s colour scheme, then we go to 80s, and now probably the most boring out of all of them, but whatever. And basically what this is doing is it's affecting the sort of tone of the reverb to emulate analog reverbs from that time period. Another really good thing about these plugins is that every time you hover over stuff, you get like a little explanation written at the bottom, like down in this area. So when I'm on color, you can see if I go to color, yeah, it says at the bottom. So 1970s downsampled means that the reverb's downsampled, and it's darker with noisier modulation. It lets like the frequencies build up more, and I suppose creates a kind of a denser kind of reverb. 80s is now there's no downsampling done, but it's still like a darker, noisier modulation. And then when you have it on now, it's like bright and clean because it's like that really modern, clinical sound that we can now achieve with modern technology. So that gives you some options to then affect which type of reverb you want it to emulate. As I said, the Smooth Plate is probably my favourite. And also down here you have all these different presets. The Huge Space is one I use quite a lot just for ease when I'm especially making ambient music. Yeah, so they're the things along the bottom. Obviously, your mix knob, how much of the wet signal you're putting in, pre-delay, so that's like how long you want between the original signal happening and then before the reverb coming in, so you can get it a bit delayed. I can give you an example. If I put it really high, you'll be able to hear it really obviously. If it's at 0, the reverb just starts instantly when the sound starts. The decay is how long the reverb tail is going to go over time. When I'm making ambient, I've always whacked that up to full and then bring the mix down to tame it. I just love to create that big space. Generally though, if you're not using it so creatively, bringing it back to more sort of around this area is usually a better practice, just to put something in a space rather than to create this massive sweeping ambience. You then have these damping things, which are basically shelf EQ. So the high frequency, if we bring that down, we're just making like a shelf EQ. I can show you that here quickly. It's basically just doing this kind of thing. That's a shelf. a high shelf, or we're damping it. So if we're bringing it down, it's basically doing that. If we're putting it up, it's doing it that. That's a shelf EQ. Similarly, yeah, so that's a high shelf. The high frequency, that's going to be like which frequency here you want the shelf to start at. Like, you know, if you want your high shelf to be like here, then you'd have it down like, yeah, pretty far like that, you know, or you can have it just affecting the highs, and then this one is obviously going to be the equivalent of doing this or that. Then on the bass, you have the bass frequency, so you can select which sort of low end frequency you want, and then you can use this to multiply, which I'm not sure exactly what that's doing. It says here scales the reverb decay time for bass frequencies relative to the decay parameter. I'm not entirely sure what that means. If you know what that means, drop a comment below, because that would be some useful information. I don't really look at that. Shape is going to set the room size, essentially, this virtual room that you're creating, this virtual space that the reverb is going to be putting your sound in. And attack is going to control the initial attack of that reverb decay. So I suppose it's like how quickly the reverb is going to start to decay after the initial wash. So then we've got the diffusion. Diffusion is where it actually gets a bit interesting, and you can really sort of start to make some sort of more interesting stuff going on. So this, if you don't know, like what reverb basically is loads of delays all like happening at the same time to create this wash. And the diffusion, it sort of blurs that line between the reverb and the delay. If I have like we've got early diffusion and late diffusion, what that just means is how soon in the reverb tail this is happening. So the early diffusion, if you've got that up to 100, you're going to get like the initial so it says here controls the initial echo density. So at 100, I think it's just going to sound like reverb straight away. But if you have that echo density down, it means we're going to get more of what sounds like delays happen before it turns into a reverb. So let's just see if we can listen to what that sounds like. If I cut this so it's just like one individual sound, you get more of just the reverb tail. Cut that there. So you can hear that's creating some delay, and that's because the diffusion is on early. If we whack it up to 100, straight away we're in reverb land. If we bring it down, delays. So that's early. So what that's doing is like it will be delays that then turn into a reverb over time. Or with the late one, we can actually make that reverb then start to turn into delays later on in the tail. So that's an interesting way to get some sort of movement into your reverb. Another thing you can then do for that same sort of purpose, you then have this the modulation controls, which is going to like create more movement and depth within your reverb too. So we can play around with that and listen. So the depth is going to be like basically how intense that modulation is in the reverb, and then the rate is like how quick or slow you want that movement to be happening. Apologies for the really uninspiring sound there. I might try and get the sample back here. So you can create some really interesting stuff, interesting textures there. And then you just have at the end EQ, simply high cut and low cut. That's different to the damping, because the damping is a shelf EQ doing that. But if you put so that would be the high shelf, bringing the high shelf EQ down. Or if you're using the high cut and you wanted to bring high cut down, that's cutting the highs entirely rather than just creating a shelf. So that's basically doing that kind of thing. And that's all the controls there. So I suppose now that I've sort of shown you through everything that you can control in this plugin, we'll just go through some of these cool presets and just listen to some of the stuff that it's capable of, some of the sounds that it does. So I'll show you a few in ambiences first. worth mentioning, unless I have reverb on a send, then I'm always using this mix knob. It's basically so you're always using it in parallel with whatever your signal is. So I like to have the signal and then the reverb happening behind whatever that sound is. If your mix is full, you're drowning it out in the reverb, which is good if you want to put it on a send, but if it's a direct input, then you generally want to bring this mix knob down. We'll show you the huge spaces. These are what I most commonly use when I'm making like ambient stuff. Medieval. And then to show you some of the more experimental stuff that you can achieve with this plugin, you have in the presets this chaotic folder. I'll show you some of these things. So these are like more experimental, more experimental stuff. You can see that some of these preset names are obviously meant for like certain sounds, like this is targeting snares. You got gated reverbs, halls, all these different sort of things. And as always with presets, they just give you really good starting places to sort of get in the right ballpark of what you want to be doing, depending on what it is that you want to use that reverb for. And then you can play around with the settings, and by knowing what all these settings do, what I've just been through, that can help you to more accurately shape your reverb to find the sound that you are looking for. So hopefully that's useful. I'll leave a link to Valhalla Vintage Verb in the description below this video if you want to go grab it. It's like $50, I believe. So for us in England, in pounds, that's actually cheaper than 50, which is nice. All of the Valhalla plugins are all the same price. They're all around that, so they're actually really affordable. If there's only one Valhalla plugin that you grab, I would say it's this one is the most versatile. They do a lot of different reverbs, but I'd say Vintage Verb covers the most ground and gets the widest variety of results. They also have 3 free plugins, so definitely go grab the free ones while you're there as well. They have Supermassive, I think it's Space Modulator, and Frequency Echo. All 3 of them are really good, immense plugins. Go check them out. And yeah, hopefully that's useful. Drop a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not already. If you've got any comments, any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll try to get back to you. Otherwise, big up, and I'll see you guys in the next video.